How we doing, everyone? Welcome to episode 8. This is All Blocks Covered, podcast that talks about all the different facets of the NBA. I'm your host, Marcus. I got my brother, Chili, right next to me. Say what's up, Chili.
Hello, everyone.
This is the Players Pod 2.0. Bringing back the All-NBA discussion. Got a little bit more that I want to say in that regard. Might talk about all defense team, first team. Stemming from that, we might need to go into who are the top players per position and kind of stem that into the all-NBA discussion. We've got the NBA awards, and then let's look at the playoff picture. The last week of the NBA season is upon us. What are the tight races? What happened this week? What are we looking forward to before the postseason starts? But I'm going to stem away from basketball a little, and we need to talk about track and field.
The best sport.
We should do our own track and field podcast. Little backstory. Both of us have previous experience in track and field in high school. Both went to states for separate events. I was a 110 hurdler. Chili was a jumper. You went for triple or long jump?
Triple
jumps. That's what I thought. Definitely experience in that. He ended up competing in college.
D3.
Still triple?
It's triple.
Yeah. And so the reason we're bringing this up is because there's been a lot of talk over the weekend with DK Metcalf, wide receiver of the Seattle Seahawks, actually competing in a professional track and field event. And there's been a lot of talks over time of just like how NFL players, how do they match up with sprinters? Because every time you see the NFL Combine, you see the 40 times, and you're just like, oh my God, this guy is so fast, but can he do it for 100 meters, which is a whole different animal. And I actually competed in the 100 meter a little towards the end of my senior year. But he competed yesterday. I know a lot of sprinters, especially on social media, felt like they were highly disrespected because they're just like, this guy from a completely different genre of a sport thinks that he can come into our sport and thinks that he's faster than us. And for me personally, I always feel like actually the sport of track and field doesn't get a lot of love, especially for like what they can do, because there's fast, what we see from just our normal speed or just from like the NFL or what other sport. But then there's like track and field fast, where it's just like literally in a blink of an eye. Like you're just like, I don't know how they sort of did this. So I can understand the disrespect from sprinters. But yesterday he competed. In his heat, he got 7th out of 8th, I believe. And he got like a 10:36, which I think is very impressive, especially for like his size. But like, where are you with like I guess NFL players trying to sort of compete with track and field athletes, and then just like, what are your overall thoughts on like what he did yesterday?
Yeah, I thought it was impressive, and I think I encourage other players from across other sports to do the same. I think track and field, if you do any sport, if you do track and field, that could get you better at your particular sport. So I think most people should do that. And to be honest, we see like people, I don't follow the NFL, but I always hear people like the cheetah or whatever being really fast.
Yep.
And like I always knew, sprinters are for sure going to be faster than them because that's what they do. That's what they work out for.
I think the part of the disrespect is that a lot of people think it's just like, hey, you're just coming out of the blocks and you just try to run as fast as you can. When in reality, there's just so much technique that goes into it. And there's definitely many different cues while you're running, whether it's mental cues or even physical cues of like, whether it's the 100, 200 hurdles. There's so many different things that you have to sort of think about. It's not just like, hey, I'm faster than you, or like, hey, I can just outrun you. And I think a lot of people from the outside, casuals, or even like NFL athletes, kind of don't understand that, because when they do the 40 time, it's like, hey, just run as fast as you can. Especially wide receivers, like they route run, and they should know because they're not just running straight forward like in a linear direction. They've got many different movements that they do. So it's the same thing kind of in track and field of just like face, arms, right off the blocks. What are you doing with your legs, sort of deal. Especially like if you're running the 200 right off the curve, what are you doing? But I just thought like yesterday, other people can have other opinions, but I thought it was hella impressive. Like the guy's like a freaking tank. You know, like if you look up DK Metcalf like on Google, I'm sure you're gonna find like that workout picture from like his draft of just like why does he look like a goddamn god? You know, sort of deal. I'm just like 6'3", like 235 or 230. He's even big for a wide receiver. First of all, he looks like a tight end or whatever. But major props to him. I think on his post game, he was just like, "Hey, I'm just out here to have fun," which that's the right way to go.
And to be honest, if it's his body type, if he was in track shape like those guys he went against, I feel like he'd be right there with them.
True. Yeah, exactly. It's very noticeable when you watch it. Like, there's him, and then there's like everybody else that's like 160, 170, you know, sort of deal, and like all like under 6 foot. So it's like, okay, there's no sort of where's DK. It's like, nope, you definitely can find him. He's way bigger than everybody else. But just like Chili said, I commend like other athletes if they want to try it. You know, why not? I've seen track athletes participate in the NFL, so it is what it is. And maybe we might bring this back when the Olympics happen. You know, we'll probably talk about a little bit more about track and field. But let's get back to basketball, and here's All NBA. All right, so we need to bring back the All NBA conversation from last week. And the only reason we're doing this is because when I was on NBA Twitter, there was a gentleman named Howard Beck. He's an NBA writer, reporter from Sports Illustrated, that put out a tweet saying that there's individuals that can have position flexibility in terms of voting, where some guys can be guards and forwards, some guys can be forwards and centers. And that really sort of, I don't know if it irked me or just like I just felt like I just needed to share why this is an issue for me, or I guess for the NBA community or for the media members that have to vote. And so he sort of explained that some individuals, I think I wrote this down, where guys like Jaylen Brown, Tatum, Zach LaVine, Luka, LeBron, Kawhi, PG, Jimmy Butler, Chris Middleton, Ben Simmons, and Devin Booker can be listed as guards and forwards. And Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic can be centers and forwards. So I want to move backwards and say that I do not understand how Jokic and Embiid can be listed as forwards when there was no part in the season where they played forward. Like I'm looking at Jokic, and he literally plays center. Paul Millsap plays forward for them as a starter. And yes, Jokic brings the ball up sometimes. Yes, he can play on the perimeter, but he is listed as a center on Basketball Reference and on Fantasy that you even showed me. Embiid as well. Yes, you have Dwight Howard. They've probably played together maybe a short amount of time, but Embiid, his almost an entire career has played center. So I don't understand why either one of them will be listed as forwards. And as well, when I'm looking at the other players, Jason Tatum is a forward. Kemba Walker, Jaylen Brown are the 1-2. Okay, even when they have Marcus Smart in there, they have 3 guards in there, and Tatum is the forward. There's no opportunity where Jason Tatum is a guard. The point I'm trying to make here is that the media and the NBA just has to make hard decisions for like these 3 teams. Like you have to put one center in there. And I get it because you look at Jokic and Embiid, they've been pretty much 1-2 in the MVP conversation sort of deal. They've had exceptional seasons, but you just got to make a hard decision where it's like one guy's one center for one team and one guy's a center for the other team. The same thing for like Tatum, PG as well. I guess he can have sort of the flexibility, but just like we brought this up last week of just like, what is Luka? What is LeBron James? What is Ben Simmons? Like, what is their positions? Like, where are you with the position flexibility, or do you just want it to be everyone has one position and that's it, or just go positionless? How about that? Where's your take on, I guess, all that?
Yeah, but I mean, like during the season, I could see teams needing some of their star players to fill some roles, and I get that. But at the end of the season, you should solidify one position in order to make it easier for this All-NBA teams. I don't think it would be fair to put Joel Embiid and Jokic on the same team because you're gonna leave out a forward that had a great year and it's well deserving of that award.
I like All-Star where it's like literally 2 guards and 3 forwards. So if you just want to do that, sort of deal. Like go that route, make it like equal opportunity, just like All-Star. Do that for All NBA, sort of deal. Or you can just flat out go with how the NBA is played right now and just go flat out positionless. Sorry, just who's the 5 best guys, or who's the best 15 guys for all 3 teams put together. Because at this point, everyone, like you said, everyone is playing different positions. Everyone's guarding different positions.
And to be honest, I agree with that last part you say, because we don't really need positions anymore. I mean, LeBron James, he can guard Embiid. Like Giannis can guard Jokic, things like that. Jimmy Butler can guard Kyrie Irving. I don't think it really matters. So I like that, how just pick the best guys,
And like I said, if you're going to go with positions, you just got to make the hard decisions and say that one guy is a center, one guy is a center for another team, one guy is a forward for this team, one guy is going to be a forward for next team. We can't just start guessing where it's like, okay, well, I've got 6 guards and I left off this one guy that can do both, so he's not going to make it for the guard, so I can just put him in the forward, sort of deal. It's like, that's not how it works. And the problem is we can go straight to the facts and say both of them, with this sort of game that they're trying to play, where it's like, if you want to put Embiid and Jokic on first team, then go ahead. Because then what happens is second team will be probably Gobert. And then who's your third team center? Because you can't just put a forward in a center. So is it going to be Bam Adebayo, Clint Capella, Vucevic? Don't get me wrong. All 3 of those guys have had exceptional seasons and they're really good players, but they're not deserving to be on any of those 3 teams. That's what I guess bothers me, is because you're going to put in probably a Bam Adebayo. Again, no disrespect for Bam Adebayo. I think he's a phenomenal player. But just like you put him as third team center, then you're leaving off a guard or a forward that absolutely deserves to be on one of those teams that's going to be left out. And like I said last week, there's financial stake in this for some players. Like part of their contracts is like, hey, you have to make All NBA and you get that certain percentage points or a percentage to your salary. And like I said, they're millionaires, they're whatever, like it is what it is. But if you're just stating facts, it's going to suck for one of those guys that's going to be left off because they decided to do this and they put Embiid and Jokic in first team. And now you have to add another center that probably doesn't need to be there, sort of deal. So with that being said, I started last night writing down my teams and my guarantees, pen to paper. And so right now I feel really comfortable based on what they're trying to do. I feel very comfortable with my first team. So for you, as I'm sharing this, do you want me to go team by team, or do you want me to go like last week where we just do centers first, forwards, and then guards?
I like it by position.
Okay, let's do that then. So technically, we can kind of skip centers, and so I decided.
Well, are you gonna say all 3 teams?
Well, probably not, because my guarantees are very small. After I've got my first team very good, pretty much after that is not. So we can probably we can start with positions essentially. So how I'm doing it is for centers. I've got first team. Since Jokic I'll put him in the forwards. So for my 3 centers, it's Embiid, first team, Gobert, second team, and then third team, I'm putting Bam Adebayo. You can put Vucevic or Clint Capella. I'm just looking at Bam Adebayo as like the full total package for offensive defense of like what he brings to the table for the third team center. Again, I don't feel comfortable even putting him in there. And like I said, it could be interchangeable between him, Vucevic, Clint Capella. I'm not putting Cat because he's missed multiple games or whatever. But those are kind of like my 3 centers. Forwards, this is where it gets... Actually, guards is impossible, but I'll say forwards is tricky.
Well, should I say my centers?
Yeah. Sorry. Go for it.
So first team, All NBA center, I got Jokic. And then second team, I have Embiid. And third team, I got Vucevic.
So I'm glad you went that route, because that is the way it should be, sort of deal. And that's the way that I had last week. And
to be honest, real quick, for my centers, for my third team, I was really thinking about Bam and even Capella a little bit. For some reason, I didn't want to put Gobert up there. I just want to focus on him for defense.
My only issue with Gobert is that he's definitely going to be on there, because I think what he does for defense is a lot bigger than people actually think. Because obviously on the offensive end, it's not that it's bad, but it's just like he just does enough what like lobs or whatever, or in the post, but just
But
like
you could say his defensive stops are generating offense.
exactly that's what I was trying to get at. Just like his entire presence is so grand for Utah. And again, he's probably one of the best like stoppers, I should say, or like big man stoppers as a center. So like it's almost like he has to be on there, and every sort of person in the media is going to pick him, sort of deal. I really like Vucevic, to be honest, of what he can do on the perimeter as well. Bam can guard all 5 positions. Clint Capella has been absolutely phenomenal. He needs to get his flowers because people forgot about him even going to
You know
Atlanta.
what's awesome, bro? All of these centers that we're talking about, they're mostly international.
I was going to bring that up for like when we talk about like MVP and stuff. It was just like it's amazing that like there's so many really good international players right
That's
now.
awesome, bro.
It really is. But let's go to forwards really quick. And again, this gets kind of tricky-ish, but not as tricky as the guards. So
remind us again, like how many forwards are we picking?
So we're getting 6 forwards. So technically, like I said, based on the fact that I'm putting Embiid and Jokic on my first team, Jokic and Giannis are my 2 for the first team. Everything else is kind of weird because I've got Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. This is where it gets tricky because when you get to like third team, I put LeBron. I also on my third team based on the missed games. I think he would be first or second team if he played the entire season, but based on the fact that he's missed 20 plus games, I put him third team. And then Randall. Like the things. What sucks is that I'm leaving off Kevin Durant. He missed over like 36 games. Jason Tatum, not there. Those are probably my 2. Sabonis, not there. So, but then it goes back to the LeBron thing of just like he can also be a guard, sort of deal. So like there's that flexibility right there. But again, I've got Kawhi, PG, LeBron, Randall, and then the first 2 was Jokic and Giannis. And that's where it pisses me off because I have Jokic in a forward spot when he should be in a center spot. So that eliminates Tatum or Sabonis. But
So for me, for my forwards, first team, All-NBA, I have Giannis and Kawhi Leonard.
okay, that's what I originally had. But yeah, go ahead.
Okay. And they both play, power forward, small forward, both position, mainly small forward, both of them. For the second team, I have, this is kind of funny, I have Tatum and, well, it's not funny. I got Tatum. I have Tatum and Randall.
Oh, okay. Randall second team.
For my
nice.
second team.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
And for my third team, I have Bam Adebayo and I have LeBron.
Wow.
But I almost put, it was going to be funny because I almost put Bam second team and it's like Tatum against Adebayo in the playoffs.
True.
But yeah, so real quick again, Giannis, Kawhi, then I have Tatum, Randall, and then I have Adebayo and LeBron.
So my question to you based off that is what I'm assuming is either you don't have Paul George on any of those 3 teams or you list him as a guard.
I've always seen him, to be honest, I've always seen him as a forward, like guarding LeBron back then with the Pacers days. But I'm just thinking about my top players in each position. And because I like Paul George, I mean, not that much, he's on the Clippers, but I like him, but it's not enough for me to like just throw him up there,
See, my thing, I've had a problem with the PG. Well, first of all, when I went into when we did it 2 episodes ago where I'm just like, Randall has to be on there, and I'm committing to Randall absolutely having to be on there. And so you have Randall as a guarantee, you have Giannis as a guarantee, you have Kawhi as a guarantee. LeBron was really sticky for me because he missed 20 plus games, but it's LeBron James, and he was in MVP conversation before he got it. So I'm just like, he has to be on there. Kevin Durant was just like 36 games, man, like 30. It's too much, and I think he is one of the best players of like in the world right now. But just like I can't put him on there. Like that disparity right there of just 30 plus games is just too much. Tatum's like kind of the Westbrook for me, where it's like the last second half of the season has been so damn good, like just flat out phenomenal, like keeping the Celtics really in the thick of things. But then like Paul George has been also pretty consistent throughout his entire season. So that was kind of like the nudge for me, but I'm just sad because I want to put Tatum in there. But it's the Jokic thing where it's just like, okay, if I put Jokic in my first team based on what you're allowing, you almost have to put Embiid and Jokic in first team. And then that eliminates that one guy off the forward line, and that was Tatum for me. But again, the same thing for you, PG for you. Mm-hmm. So guards, it's impossible for me. Like I gave up last night. Literally, I flat out gave up last night. Okay, so my first team is Doncic and Steph Curry. Okay. My second team is Dame. And then I've got 3 guys left, and for 1 more for second team and 2 more for third team. And here's the bank, essentially. Brad Beal, Kyrie Irving, Donovan Mitchell, who else did I have? Devin Booker, Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook. I've got 6 guys in my bank that I have 3 spots for.
Bro, we got to make the hard decisions, bro.
And you have to. And you know what? I can't believe I'm doing... Oh, and James Harden. I forgot about James Harden. So what I did was I put... Okay, so Dame is my second team. I put James Harden also in there as my second team. And I don't care if I get hater on this, but just like I'm putting in Kyrie and Russell Westbrook, and I'm leaving Chris Paul out. And I feel terrible about that because he's been in the conversation these last couple of weeks about being in the MVP conversation, and we'll get to that and like that whole sort of narrative. But I understand what Chris Paul does for his team. But I'm just looking at stats and eye test, and I'm just thinking what Russell Westbrook is doing. I had to put him in there. I don't care. Like, I just had to put him in there. The triple doubles are just too important to me. And what Kyrie does, just like, what is he averaging? 27 a game, just like. But here's before you get to your list, my counter of just like, I'm putting Westbrook in, but I'm leaving Beal off, who is possibly going to be leading the league in scoring. And technically probably is the better player, specifically offensively. And I'm just like, I just put in Westbrook and not Beal, who's averaging almost 32 points a game. And then also leaving Chris Paul out, leaving Devin Booker out, leaving Donovan Mitchell out. Even in the forwards, I forgot to say this, I left Jimmy Butler off, which is unfortunate. And it is what it is. But you go to your list for guards.
So our first All-NBA is identical. I have Luka Doncic and Steph Curry. Mm-hmm. And they've just been killing it. For my second team, got my favorite player, Kyrie Irving. He's been sensational to watch this season. And then I got Russ on the second team.
Whoa, over Dame.
No, I'm sorry. I forgot about Dame. So I got Kyrie and Dame, second team. And then for third team, I got Russell. And I don't know if you'll like this or not, but I have Trae Young.
Wow. Okay, so I had him in my original bank from last week when I gave like every single guard like flowers. I was like, you know what? I'll just put his name there, like Levine. I'll put their names there. I'm really surprised by your Trae Young. Explain to me why.
I just, he like the Hawks, they just made such a leap this season, and I know they have new like the roster that got improved and their coach. But I think without Trae Young, there's no Hawks. They won't be in that situation. They wouldn't be building around him like that. And for me, he's just so exciting to watch. And I know, there are probably some better players out there. But for me personally, I love everything that he brings to the table.
I respect that. I definitely respect that. And especially like where they're at right now. Again, this is kind of like the Chris Paul effect too, as well as whereas like Phoenix has not made it for a long time, and now they're in playoff picture, or they're 1 or 2 seed. Same thing with Atlanta, hasn't been in the playoffs for a while. Maybe not as much as Phoenix, but again, they're right in the middle, 5 seed ish, competing for the 4 seed as well, on the backs of Trae Young as well. But I cannot wait for when this actually comes out, because it's going to be hella debatable. Because one of our favorites is not going to be on that list, and so we're going to get upset.
I'm upset.
Very much so. And I'm going to be very much upset knowing that they played the game and Jokic and Embiid is going to be on there and a forward's going to be left out. And I'm just going to be like, I don't understand why you did this. And I remember reading on Twitter that I guess like this happened, like Patrick Ewing in the 90s was like 4th in MVP voting and didn't make all NBA because the 3 guys in front of him were centers. So it was like 1 center, 1 center, 1 center. And then he got left out, but he was 4th in voting. And obviously he's a phenomenal player, but like, you just have to make hard decisions, and what we figured out right now, like it is very hard to do these sort of things. And like I said, there's financial stake for some of these players as well. Let's lead that into, I want to do this before we do like top players or whatever. I want to talk about a little bit about all defense, and I didn't necessarily put together teams, but I wrote down like a bank of players that probably should. Did you put down a team or no?
No, but I have an idea.
Okay. So you go with some of your players of like who you like for possibly for like all defense. So you just like list off your players.
I mean, just real quick up the top, I have Ben Simmons, Rudy Gobert, those being the obvious one. I'll throw in Capella up there. And I'll put in Jimmy Butler up there just based on guarding the guards and just steals,
I think he leads the league in steals as well. Have all those players on my list as well. I put back Giannis in there, defensive player of the year the last 2 years. You've got to look at sort of the numbers. Like when you're watching it, you're probably thinking he's probably not. But then when you actually go look at like some of the advanced stats for him and like what he does, he's probably got to be either first or second team. Marcus Smart, still got to put him back on there. Drew Holiday, big difference for Milwaukee defensively as well as always guarding the top players. Bam Adebayo. Miles Turner, he's been injured a little, so I don't see him possibly making first or second team. But like when we talked about the midseason awards for like defensive player of the year, that was one of the guys that was just like, hey, he could be one of those like a top 3 guy in that sort of conversation. Some like under the radar guys that I thought about, Lou Dort.
Thibault?
I had him down, Matisse Thibault. Very underrated. OG Anunoby, very underrated. And then I just threw in Kawhi Leonard, because just who he is.
The King Slayer.
Yeah. I also put Draymond Green. The Warriors are surprisingly like a really good defensive team. Obviously, he's on the backs of probably Draymond Green as well. But any one of those players are probably going to be on first team all defense. Let's go to positions, players by positions. And this was probably actually kind of harder than all NBA for some reason, because did you do top 5 or you just wrote down?
I was wondering, is top 5 too steep?
That is a good question. For some of them, I guess for some positions, I should say. Let's do backwards like we did all NBA. You go with your centers, like your top guys for center.
And okay. And
well, first of all, actually, are you doing it by this season or are you doing it just in general? Like these are like individual when I look at this player.
Just for this season.
Okay,
but my question was going to be, is it in order?
Mine's not in order.
Okay.
Just
top 5 straight up.
Yeah, straight up.
Jokic, Embiid, Vucevic, and then I have Bam Adebayo. And it's just kind of hard because a lot of these guys are power forwards and centers. But I'll put Gobert.
Okay, I was about to say, like, your Gobert disrespect is on an all-time high.
Yeah, I can't be ignorant, man.
So I put Jokic, Embiid. So, okay, I'll put an asterisk by this person last, but I'll do Jokic, Embiid, Gobert, Bam, and Vucevic. But my asterisk is Anthony Davis because I kind of looked at it as, in general, as like he's probably the best out of all of those guys. Not by a long shot, but like he's in that upper echelon. But again, the season that he's had this year is just like I can't put him as my top 5 just based on this year alone.
But also, you also talk about how AD's more of a 4.
Okay, so I would classify him as the Tim Duncan, is he a forward? Is he a center? Played a lot of center, but also listed as probably one of the best forwards of all time when I'm talking about Tim Duncan. Same thing with AD. It's just like he's probably a 5, but when you add like Drummond, Dwight Howard, the JaVale McGee's along with him, then he plays the 4. So
I thought you were going to put the asterisk next to Karl Anthony Towns. I thought you wanted to put him up there for some reason.
I think I just flat out just disrespected him. But I also really like Vucevic. And I really like Bam, especially what Bam maybe I look at Bam as like the potential of what he can become, especially what he did in the bubble. What he did in the bubble was just like absolutely fantastic. A little drop off this year, but like you just see the potential of just like what he can be, and you're just like, wow. And I can't, for Cat, maybe it's the injuries and like what he's and like him being out, but he's also a phenomenal player. And I think the fact that he also plays with the Timberwolves, like that kind of gets overshadowed, I guess, with him.
Slow start, but it seemed like at the end of the season, whether they were having fun or winning games, it was looking up.
True. Very true. Power forwards. Let's just go with your list and I'll for the whole thing, and then I'll go with mine. So you go with your power forwards.
So for my power forwards, number 1, I'm going to go ahead and put Sabonis. I mean, and again, it's no order, but he just really stands out from the beginning of the season all the way through. Then I'll go with Julius Randle.
Okay.
I'll put Draymond Green up there.
Wow.
And
okay.
And mostly because, I mean, I'm, what he does in defense, whatnot, but I mean, his assists, he's got to be like top 5 in assists. I think that's just so impressive. And it just gets hard with the small forwards and the power forwards.
It does.
But, I'll throw in Zion in there. I mean, he's an all-star, right? And then I'll finish with Siakam.
Okay, so that's very interesting from you because I guess my mix-up is the small forwards and power forwards because I put Giannis and KD as power forwards, which technically you can put them in the small forward based on like how they play and how they're used. But I guess I just look at it as pure size.
And I respect that. I get that. I'm just like, especially when I met these players like Giannis, Durant, they were always small forwards, always guarding LeBron or Kawhi, the best small forward. And that's how I grew up with them, seeing them as. When I think about so here's my thing. When I think about small forwards and power forwards, like power forwards, I think of them like in the paint or whatnot. And like small forwards, I still see them like creating and like playmaking.
This is where it goes into the discussion of just the positionless basketball, which even when we're doing this exercise, like you can look on fantasy and you can look on basketball reference and it does label these people as centers, power forwards or whatever. But when you watch the game, they're not playing in those traditional positions. Like when I look at Jokic, yes, he's on the post and he's a great passer out the post, but he's also on the wing as well. Giannis always on the wing. KD always on the KD 7 foot, always on the wing. Never really see him in the post, sort of deal. So it's just really tough of just like what exactly is a power forward, what exactly is a center, what exactly is a point guard. Because we have so many like shoot first point guards, sort of deal. Really like your Draymond Green pick. I also saw a stat that like he leads the league in just like one individual passing to a certain individual, and it's like him and Steph Curry.
Oh, we talking ESPN stats, huh?
Probably. But he leads the league in passing it to Steph Curry, like that one individual, which of course it is what it is. They have great connection. Small forwards, I'm sure is very tough for you, but let me hear your list.
So small forwards, I've got Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, Jason Tatum, and I have to put LeBron. I'm looking at Jimmy Butler, even looking at Luka, because you could put Luka up there too if you wanted. I kind of want to save him for another position, but I feel bad for Jimmy Butler. I like him a lot, but I'd put LeBron superior, I think.
So I already explained my Giannis and KD. So I had LeBron, Kawhi, PG, Tatum, and then I had a half of Jimmy Butler and Chris Middleton, which
take it back.
Yeah, I know.
Take it back.
But I just respect both of those players. But like, if I had to pick one of those two, I would pick Jimmy Butler. But I mean, the small forward is again the very interesting one where I'm just like, okay, that's the most flexibility position, where probably some of those guys can play, I guess, guard as well, or can play the 4 or whatever. Shooting guard.
So I'm going to catch you off guard here because a lot of the small forwards that you mentioned, I kind of have as shooting guards.
That's fine, yeah.
And no order, again, I've got Jimmy Butler, Bradley Beal, Paul George. I'm going to put in Drew Holiday there.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow, wowzers. Okay.
And then I'm going to finish with...
I know you're gonna miss one of these guys. Go for
James
it.
Harden.
Yep. Well, no, not him, but I know you're gonna miss this guy when I tell him. So, okay, interesting list. I want to add Devin Booker.
Devin Booker.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about Devin, and it came down with Devin and Drew. And it sucks because I don't have a lot of the Suns players on my top whatever, and they're killing it. I'm so happy for them. I'm proud of them. But I just love what Drew Holiday does, and I'm a defensive head, and like if you can score and play make, and then you can guard the best guard, and I think that's just gonna be a recipe for success. And then that's what the Bucks need, and we think they might make a push with him. And if he makes all that difference, then I gotta consider him.
You said Beal, right?
Beal. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I have this feeling that
make sure.
Yeah, I have this feeling when we're done, like with this whole podcast, we're gonna forget like someone, completely disrespect someone, but it's okay. Point guards, go. I'm nervous for this one for you.
For me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna start with some solid ones that
Okay.
I for sure think you have. So I've got Steph Curry, point guard supreme, Kyrie Irving. I've got Damian Lillard. You know, I'm gonna put Chris Paul up there. I'm finally gonna give some respect to the Suns, not because he's good this year, and I mean I know we're doing this year, but just the longevity, and he's still doing it, and he's still leading all these teams to the top. And then my last, I'm gonna put. It came down to Russell Westbrook and Trae Young, and I'm gonna give it to Russell.
Okay, so where are you with Doncic?
Oh, I didn't name it. No.
So I have Steph, Kyrie, CP, Dame, and Doncic, and I have my honorable mention as Westbrook, essentially. Realizing that I also left off Donovan Mitchell, if you want to put him as a point guard or whatever. Left off Trae Young as well. The Doncic thing is also interesting. He's in that LeBron category where he's 6'7", 6'8", brings the ball up the court, but the body of a small forward. I guess we left off Ben Simmons as well, which I guess I'm okay with based on
I'm
the
okay
guys.
with that.
Yeah,
Too.
but that's the thing with Doncic. That's the thing where I'm just like, okay, if I'm going to put Doncic as a point guard, then I can put LeBron as a point guard because they're essentially the same.
And to be honest, I was at work the other day and I looked up to the screen, and ever since John Moran said he was top 5 point guard and all the shows are talking about that, I saw somebody pick LeBron as their top point guard, which, I respect it, but it's also like people are obsessed with him and like he didn't even play that much, whatever. But he could definitely be in that position.
And speaking of obsessed with LeBron and obsessed with like the superstars, that sort of leads into the conversation of MVP and the hype of not wanting it to be Jokic, and that will be next. All right, let's get into some awards, and let's start with MVP since I led in with that tease from segment 1. And so I feel like the conversation for MVP has been very loud these last couple weeks, stemming from Chris Paul being in the conversation and everything that he's done for Phoenix. Right now, they've been pretty much in the 1-2 spot, and they haven't made the playoffs in 11 years. And one of the big catalysts has been Chris Paul. And so there's been a lot of people in the media, as well as on Twitter, that's been like hyping up Chris Paul to be MVP. But maybe you're in the same camp with me, but I just feel like Jokic is just kind of like running away with it.
Yeah, I think Jokic is tier 1 by himself. And then tier 2, you got Embiid and whoever else you want to put, and everyone else is below that. But I think Jokic is by himself.
I think when you even factor, and what made it like over the top is when Murray went out and Barton was injured, and then they went on that 9-1 run of like winning games. And obviously that's on the back of Jokic. And obviously Michael Porter Jr. being better, adding Aaron Gordon, but just like Jokic hasn't missed a game, and he's just been so consistent, almost averaging a triple-double at the center position. I think he's probably one of the best passers, if not the best passer in the NBA. His vision is incredible for his size. And I guess this conversation is more the fact that why are we trying to make a conversation kind of out of nothing, kind of thing. It's been Jokic pretty much almost from the start. I was just looking at my midseason, and I had like Joel Embiid, and I had Joel Embiid, Jokic, and LeBron, and I know you had Kevin Durant, like in your conversation, but just like all those guys got injured and missed games, and Jokic has just been from start to finish. I remember him even averaging a triple double by that time, and he's dropped off a little, but just like he's been just so consistent that like there doesn't even need to be really a conversation. There's 1 week left in the season at this point. I'm surprised that Giannis hasn't gotten a lot of love for having essentially the same numbers, and we talked about like how the agenda behind wanting to vote for a guy for like a third straight time. But I'm just surprised like his name is not getting heightened like Chris Paul. People have been talking about James Harden, but then there's the 3 superstars right there. Steph Curry, his numbers have been like astronomical, but just like, again, fighting for that play-in tournament sort of deal. So like when you start like going down the list of like people that could potentially be on there, I mean, you go Jokic versus each of those individuals, like you got to go Jokic. I mean, at this point. So what do we want to do next? Let's go to, let's see, Defensive Player of the Year. Who do you have?
I'm gonna go with Ben Simmons. It's solely because, again, his height, and he can guard most of the positions, and he's been vocal about it too, which sometimes I don't like it, but when you're vocal about it, you won the award, and you're actually playing really hard and justifying why you should get the award. I think that's very impressive, especially being that young. And it's something that Jalen Rose like to call irrational confidence, I think. So I like that. So I'll give it to Ben Simmons for sure. And I mean, before I have Miles Turner, mid-season awards, he's been hurt. You can talk about Clint Capella too.
True. I also have Ben Simmons. I'll go backwards. Is that I think the media will select Gobert, and I'll talk about Gobert is because he has really anchored Utah's defense in terms of like them having one of the top like team defensive teams. But when it's like the eye test with Gobert is that every single time like a guy wants to drive, like he second guesses himself. And so you see a lot of teams chucking up more threes than usual because they don't want to attack against Gobert. But the reason I'm picking Ben Simmons is really just the versatility. Like he can guard literally 1 through 5. And it's different from like, hey, I'm switching on to a guard and I can guard him. It's like, no, if Doc Rivers says, hey, you're guarding Chris Paul tonight, he will guard Chris Paul tonight. If he says, I'm going to guard Bam Adebayo tonight, he will guard Bam Adebayo tonight. So, like, he can literally be put on every sort of position. And I just feel like those sort of guys probably need to get more attention in terms of the versatility and can guard guys on the wing compared to, hey, I'm standing in the middle and I'm clogging up the middle. And for like a lot of bigs where they get a lot of love because they can just be stationary, essentially, where Ben Simmons can literally go all around the floor and guard whoever he wants. Miles Turner, the injuries, like I said earlier. Even when we were talking about like a lot of the all defensive guys, you can throw in like in the conversation, the Drew Holidays, the Jimmy Butlers sort of deal. But I think it's been kind of like a two-way race between Gobert and Simmons. I think Simmons, you think Simmons, but I think the media will end up picking Gobert, as well as Utah being a top seed, which that shouldn't be a factor. But
and it's pretty cool, kind of off topic, well, we're talking about Gobert. Like, Utah has a chance to win multiple awards, like with coach, defense, six man, and even like, if you could take a hard look and try to find like a most improved candidate, I'm sure someone in that team stepped up, especially now with Don being on the injury reserve. But
true. Speaking of Coach of the Year, this one,
it got tougher. I think.
Really did. I feel like it should be Quinn Snyder, but I kind of want to give it a Thibodeau.
So you got him,
right?
Bibbs. You also have Monty Williams, I think.
Yes, true.
Doc, just in the conversation.
Fair.
And then, I mean, I know he just got there with like Nate McMillan.
I'm not kidding you. I wrote down Nate McMillan. I was like, has there ever been like an interim coach that's won Coach of the Year? Because like it's a distinct difference. And no offense to Lloyd Pierce, but just like It's a distinct difference between Nate McMillan and there. And like I said, they're the 5th seed right now, competing for the 4th seed, a team that has not made the playoffs in a while. But I guess his name should be in the conversation to be talked about. He's not obviously going to win it, but like you said, Doc should be on there. Like Sixers have been like a top seed as well. I can't put Nash in there. I just cannot. And I feel like he should get maybe a little credit because of all the injuries that they've had, playing with one superstar, like trying to mesh all the egos and all that stuff. But you also have to take into account, and I don't think this is fair, but like having D'Antoni as well, being his lead assistant right there. Again, having the 3 superstars, you're not necessarily going to get that credit. But it's probably between Tibbs, Monty Williams, and Quinn Snyder. I think Quinn Snyder is going to win it, but like Tibbs, maybe for Tibbs, it's half storyline, like for the NBA of just like, hey, and half storyline for him too, coming from Minnesota and just like, and not working out there and eventually turning around the staple NBA franchise that people wanted to be turned around, and he's actually done it. Like you said, Monty Williams, I mean, 11 years not making the playoffs, had that 8-0 run, almost put him in the playoffs last year. He's got to be in the conversation, but I mean, Utah being the number 1 seed the entire year, you know, I mean, the way that they've been playing has just been almost unstoppable. We'll see if it ends up being the playoffs, but who do you have? Like, who would you vote for like right now?
Snyder.
Oh, okay, Snyder.
Give me the Snyder cut.
In the Vans vibe, in the skinny jeans. He looks like a villain in a Marvel movie or something.
Yeah, he came from the Snyder cut. He was the villain in Justice League, a remix.
But any one of those guys, I'm not going to be mad, to be honest. Other people can be mad about any one of those 3. 6th man of the year, Jordan Clarkson. So
he's like, what do you call that when you're unanimous to me?
So I actually understand the hype between having his teammate Joe Ingles, because I looked at the starting lineup and I forgot about Bogdanovich starting and Royce O'Neal starting as well. So Ingles does come off the bench predominantly. So that's why there's been a lot of push for saying, hey, his Jordan Clarkson's teammate Joe Ingles should be it. Jordan scores more points and he has more opportunities to score, but Ingles being the more all-around player and the versatile player, I can see that. But
to be honest, I thought Royce came off the bench.
See, I thought that too, to be honest. But I looked it up, and there was more opportunities where Royce started and Bogdanovich started than Ingles, and that's why he's more eligible. But I've been Jordan Clarkson preseason, midseason, quarterly, 3 quarters, all the way through. He's scored the most points all year off the bench.
Facts. Shout out to the Philippines.
I thought you were going to be like, shout out to like an old Laker guy.
Oh, that too. But, you know, feeling sense of country today. So
Facts. Most improved.
MIP. It's been a weird race for me. Like I had Christian Wood, I had Jeremy Grant, even talked about Chris Boucher. I'm just gonna give it to Julius Randle, and I was against it because I don't think he just blew up. I think he's just been a work in progress, progressively getting better every year. And but to be honest, he deserves an award. And that one's the most soothing for him. He's not gonna be MVP, but most improved, I can give him that.
See, I am also kind of pushing back still because I feel like he's more deserving of just like that all NBA team more than the most improved, because I still kind of look at it as the trajectory of this is your best season, from like a full trajectory of just like I'm getting better, and this is obviously the better season compared to, hey, I had a similar season beforehand. It's just like a little bit better than maybe like 2 years ago when he was with the Pelicans. So I'm kind of pushing back, but I just know that everyone's going to vote for Julius Randle.
Who will be your other option?
So I thought about Michael Porter Jr. and he should definitely, he's obviously not going to win, but he should definitely be in the conversation, because if you look about it last year, didn't necessarily play a lot, was horrific on defense. You saw the flashes like in the bubble, but just like they couldn't rely on him at all. But you look at this season and you look at the complete improvement, especially these last couple months of just like he's been such a reliable character for them outside of Jokic because of Murray going out, because of Burton going out, because of Aaron Gordon coming in and not being necessarily an offensive threat. They needed that second go-to scorer, and it's been Michael Porter Jr. He's been a phenomenal shooter for them, and you still see the trajectory. I almost feel like he's not going to win it this year, but he could win it even next year because he's going to be even better next year.
I could see him winning it next year, and he could be a favorite for me. I don't see it this year just because I don't know if I remember correctly, but I think last year he missed a good chunk of the season.
True.
I don't know if he was at the beginning or not, but I just take that into account. And him missing a lot of games last season, obviously I think this season he was bound to be better if he played most games.
And most people were just like, when is he going to play? You know, because he was, I believe, the 14th pick. He should have been like the number 1 pick if he didn't get injured in college, because like he was one of the number 1 recruits in high school. And so he didn't play for a while. And people were just like, they were showing like videos of him like on social media of like him dunking and shooting. And they're just like, okay, so when is he playing? Is he actually hurt or whatever? And Malone sort of just kind of like eased him in there. And he had like simple flashes, but he was just so bad on defense that they just couldn't trust him. They had to keep Jeremy Grant in there at that time, Plumlee as well. And he was coming off the bench. But just like this year, it's just been a complete emergence. They had to like have him like play a lot, you know. And again, he'll probably win it next year. What about this? This is kind of like an oddball one, but what about Zion winning it? Think about like what he did last year. And I have a counter to that, but like.
And my counter will be injuries.
Yeah.
Just not playing most of the season, you know.
I thought like injuries and shape, which that's a whole nother controversy, but just like, and then just like the explosion of what he had this year. Again, just like what kind of improvement, I guess, what's the category of improvement are we looking at with that? I even put Zach LaVine in there like as a question mark of like possible improvement as well.
What about Caris LeVert?
That's another one. But I felt like what he did in the bubble last year kind of warranted that. All right, so let's do Rookie of the Year.
LaMelo Ball.
Is this a for sure?
You know, it got dicey at the end of the season when he was out and Anthony Edwards took the spotlight. Not only on the court, he was dropping buckets, but even off the court, he started becoming that, you know, that rookie that everyone likes. But to be honest, LaMelo's back. I can't say it's for sure, but he's my favorite.
I started getting a little nervous because, I mean, Anthony Edwards, I mean, he's had multiple 40-point games, just consistently like 20, 25-plus games, pretty much the second half of the season, and you're just like, okay, he can literally take this award if LaMelo Ball doesn't come back. But LaMelo Ball was so good in the first half of the season where I'm just like, at that midseason award, we were just like, might as well just give him the award now, you know. And then obviously Anthony Edwards comes in, and even Tyrese Halliburton, like he was pretty consistent. I thought he was kind of like on the heels, but like he also got injured as well. But I think people might have a tussle with these two, but I've just been, and we've both been pretty much LaMelo Ball from the beginning. At this point, he comes back. It's the passing. It's pretty much like dominating all the different categories other than scoring compared to Anthony Edwards, the assists, the steals. I'm surprised how good of a defender he is, actually. But it's everything else outside of scoring that does it for me, and he's just such a more well-rounded player. And there's nothing against Anthony Edwards, but just like it's been LaMelo Ball pretty much kind of like from start to finish. And again, I'm excited to see him in the playoffs. Hopefully the wrist is still okay. Again, Gordon Hayward might be coming back, so I'm very excited for LaMelo Ball and what the Hornets can do in the playoffs. We didn't write this down, but Executive of the Year.
Wait, so before you move into that, I just don't want to forget. Like I know we were talking about most improved earlier, and like we didn't really want to get Randall, but just some like honorable mentions that I kind of thought would be soothing. Would be I would put in Sexton
Oh, I forgot about Sexton.
And Shao Gilgeous-Alexander.
Ooh,
I think he slightly got better.
finally some OKC talk.
Yeah. And yeah, this is the first time we bring up OKC, surprisingly, all year. Well, they've been eliminated as well.
I forgot about
And then
Sexton.
the last one I would put will be Miles Bridges. I think he just kind of came into the spotlight at the end. I mean, a little late, but I feel confident, like a favorite. It sucked with Shao Gilgeous-Alexander. I was a fan this year, but he's been hurt towards the end of the season. But there's some of those guys that I could have in the conversation.
I actually feel like a lot of those guys are guys that we should look at for next season if we're actually winning the award, because this could be like the emergence of just like, hey, they did really well this year. They didn't really get that notice, but next year they're going to tear up the scene, essentially. Especially Shea. Hopefully he gets – his is going to be tough because OKC has just been – I don't know what they're trying to do. I don't know if they're trying to stay
But I
bad.
could see him being an all-star in the future.
Absolutely. Could have been in the conversation this year. There's
If he
a ton
wasn't
of
for injuries, for
Yeah.
sure.
But yeah, so executive of the year. Before the season started, I had Rob Pelinka of the Lakers, and it was kind of understandable because you bring in Harrell, you bring in Schroeder, and you're just like, they just won the championship, and now we're adding even more better depth. Like, how is the Lakers still doing this? Remember the controversy with like Magic Johnson and Rob Pelinka? This is before AD, and you're just like, this is just a mess in Laker town.
Like, you get rid of Deion Waiters and J.R.
Yeah.
Smith, and you bring in Harrell and Schroeder, and then, you get
Because-
rid of Rondo, you bring, Marc Gasol still.
Well, I was going to say slightly nervous because of losing Rondo and like what he brought to the table. But then again, you bring in Gasol and you bring in those other two guys and you're just like, I don't understand how you can do this. They just won the championship. They're just reloading essentially, and they're going to be projected to win another one. And then you got these guys on the East Coast. Sean Marks just somehow gets James Harden, and just that one sort of deal. No, actually, not even just that one deal. Pulls off LaMarcus Aldridge in buyouts, pulls off Blake Griffin in buyouts, and you already have KD and Kyrie from the year before. They just happened to sit out. And you're just like, how did they pull that off, And obviously bringing in Steve Nash, like being able for him to coach, which that's a whole nother conversation of like if he's good or not, but just like the whole totality of what they did within this offseason, and you're just like, it doesn't make any sense. Now, if it doesn't work out and they have lost all those first-round draft picks, I think they don't have a first-round draft pick till like 2028 sort of deal. So if it just blows up, then they're absolutely screwed. But like in the moment right now, like they're set up to win the championship this year. If that happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. All right, so let's end it on either things that happened this week as well as the playoff picture. It's the last week of the season. I can't believe we made it here thus far. Credit to the play-in tournament. Nobody should get fired. They should get a raise because it's so intriguing these last couple of weeks. And the races are just so tight. But I kind of wrote down some like random things that happened this week. I don't know if you saw this, but did you see Taco Fall against Mo Bamba?
Well, it's funny because I was actually at work, but I was listening, and all I heard was something about Taco Fall, like finessing or something like that.
And so for Mo Bamba, like people have just wanted him to like play more, and like they're trying to figure out who he is as a player. But then when you see something like that and you see Taco Fall get it on the wing, through the legs, spin move, up and under over him, and you're just like, okay, Mo Bamba, you're kind of done for the season. You might have to retire right there. But I just thought that was like the funniest thing that I saw this weekend. A crazy thing was the Pacers coach, Nate Bjorklund. Woj put out that he's like on the hot seat. This is a guy that's like in his first year. He's came from Nick Nurse in Toronto. But like, it's crazy that before we even like put this podcast together, like we did a quarterly awards and he was my coach of the year within like the first like month of the season because the Indiana Pacers were just so hot. But it just kind of, with injuries, it kind of took a tumble. But I guess like there's a secondary factor of just like he's completely lost the team and they're having locker room issues. There was like a point where their assistant was yelling at one of the players and he ended up getting suspended for a game. So a lot of turmoil right now. They're in the 9th seed. The Wizards are creeping up, so they could be the 10th seed. And if they don't make the playoffs, which I think they will, but it's wild because of Nate McMillan, like what he did with the Pacers and then he ended up getting fired. I remember them giving him an extension and then firing him in the playoffs, which was pretty wild. But if you're a Pacers fan, you're probably thinking, hey, we're tired of Nate McMillan. We can only just go make it to the first round, which is typical of Pacers or whatever. But it's just interesting for Nate Bjorklund, who's a first-year coach, and he might be on his way out, and they might be looking for another coach. Brad Stevens to Indiana Pacers. Just kidding. Oh, let's talk about your Lakers. They've been, as always, we're doing our Lakers check-in at this point. They've been dwindling down. They're in the play-in right now. But then all of a sudden, last night against the Suns, AD just emerged. Where are you at right now?
I'm back. I mean, I'm super excited for AD. That was something that we needed desperately, and hopefully the team can get the energy back from that and keep the momentum going. We're gonna need it, especially if you're gonna see perhaps Golden State in that play-in tournament. We know Steph's gonna get hot. We need to get hot too.
Would you be inviting for that matchup? Like, do you want that matchup?
I want that matchup because if we lose, we don't deserve to be in the playoffs. We probably get another chance at the 8th seed. But if we win, that'll be a good test because, the Golden State's not the same, but they still got Steph Curry that can drop 50 points whenever, and you got Draymond Green that can give you, on a really good night, can give you 20 points, 10 assists, 8 rebounds, whatever. And that could be really dangerous against the Lakers.
Like I said, it's good that you guys had a little bit of time to kind of figure out the AD situation, as well as I found out that LeBron might be coming back for Tuesday's game. Again, so it gives just a small sample size of just trying to put this thing together before the play-in tournament, if they're in the play-in tournament or not. I want to go back to the Lakers-Warriors, and that is pinnacle NBA Twitter. Like, that is pinnacle, the championship game for NBA Twitter, because there's always a lot of Steph slander. There's always a lot of LeBron slander. There's a lot of Warriors and Lakers slander from both sides. And this would be like the highlight that we've kind of all wanted of just like, what does this matchup sort of look like? I think there's more riding on the Lakers, I would say, if they do lose, because you have a Steph team with just Draymond, no KD, no Clay. But if the Lakers end up winning, it's like, okay, well, who gives a damn about the Warriors sort of deal. But like, I am very much inviting that matchup more than like a Steph Dame. I know a Steph Dame would be like bombs away, but just like team versus team, like, this is what I want to see.
Fan base against fan base.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's look at some of this like playoff picture. I'll start with my team and the San Antonio Spurs, and I've never been so nervous in my life. Because the Pelicans are right behind them. I have completely counted them out, and they just happen to win games, and I don't understand why they're winning. Which is funny because I've always been like, why are they losing? But now I need them to lose, and I think it's like a 2-game. Oh, now it's a game and a half right now, and the Spurs probably have the toughest 5-game stretch in 6 days. 2 against the Suns, 1 against the Bucks, Lakers, Knicks. Like, I need them to survive like at least like 2 or 3 out of those 5 right now. But I guess I'll ask you, do you see a possibility where the Pelicans do end up beating out the Spurs and getting into the playoffs? Let me give you their schedule really quick. They got Grizzlies, Mavs, Warriors, Lakers. So they also have a kind of a tough 4 games right there.
I could see it happening before Zion getting hurt, but now I just don't see it. And to be honest, I just feel like both of those teams are not going to get far regardless. I think they could potentially get swept.
Yeah, very much irrelevant, to be honest. Like, if I wasn't a Spurs fan, I would not give a damn, to be honest, because either one of those teams is probably going to lose to whoever's going to be in the 9th seed, which will be either the Grizzlies or the Warriors. But I guess for the intrigue for the last week of the season, let's go back to the standings right now. I guess I'll ask you, so right now, the Mavs, we'll go Mavs, Blazers, Lakers. Mavs 1 game in front of the Blazers. Blazers 1 game in front of the Lakers right now. So we've got Mavs, Blazers, Lakers as a 7th seed. How do you see that sort of like matching up right now?
I see the Lakers getting out of the play-in tournament.
Okay.
Going up to 6, which I'm not a fan of. I'd rather take the risk and play for our lives and end up playing Utah or Phoenix in the first round rather than playing the Clippers, personally.
The casual in me wants the Lakers to be in the play-in tournament just for like the intrigue. But also, I want the Lakers to be in the 6th seed because there's the possibility of the Clippers-Lakers being in the 3-6 matchup. So it's kind of like a win-win, I guess, on my end. But when it comes down to the playoffs, I just want like high-level basketball, and this is how I feel about like the NCAA tournament, where I just want the best players and the best teams to go against each other. Like, and I don't want like the top teams to get knocked off, which it is what it is. But like, I want the Lakers to be there going against whoever that top team is at this point. So if they're the 5th, 6th, or 7th, like I just want them to be in that sort of situation. So if they can eliminate their way out of the play-in, just like it's a stronger opportunity for them to play against a really good team in the Clippers, and then obviously a really good team in probably the Utah or the Suns. I just don't want it to be like, hey, if they do get eliminated in the play-in tournament, we don't get to see them in the playoffs, which it's the product of the play-in tournament, but like they also need to win games too. So let's go to the East really quick and wrap up with this. I'm fascinated at the fact that the Bucks are now a half game like behind the Nets when they were literally like 3.5 games like behind them before the Nets lost like 4-0. And so I think it's a bigger deal for the Nets right now because they're not healthy. And so they need to actually get the number 1 seed. So they have an easier way to get to the conference finals compared to, hey, we're the 2 seed and we might have to play the Bucks in the second round. So that's kind of tough. And then the Knicks as well, like they have a strong opportunity of not making it into the playoffs. And it's just, again, it's the story. It's how did we get here, essentially? Because I remember in the midseason, our first episode, we were just like, just enjoy it because they've got a tough schedule for the second half of the season, so they might not even make the playoffs. Later to be known, they're still in that same position where I think they were 6th, actually, and now they're even better in 4th. Product of Tibbs being coach of the year, product of Randall being an all-NBA guy, possibly most improved. Anything from the East from you, kind of like looking at the standings right now that you're intrigued about, like for this last week or so?
I mean, special with the Wizards, I've been really surprised by them, that push they made in the second half of the season. But with Bradley Beal getting hurt, we'll see what happens. I'm surprised that Boston just keeps dropping, and also surprised that Chicago is still in the race.
Well, I was going to say I'm surprised that, or I guess my experiment of when it was the trade deadline that they would be a lot better, adding Vucevic and adding Tice and adding a little bit more experience, that they would kind of slightly make a run, but Levine got injured and it was kind of a mess, and now they might not make the playoffs. But again, they're still right there.
Levine's back now, so
true.
They can go on a little run.
The Raptors are technically not eliminated, even though they're 4.5 games back right now, which at this point, just this season doesn't count for them. Just like they weren't in Toronto, they played a road game every single game. This doesn't count for them.
And it's crazy how remember when Siakam started the bubble super bad, and like I feel like now, almost like a year, not really a year later, but this like a few months later, he's finally back into his groove, I think.
Towards the end of the season, which is so unfortunate. Which when I was looking at All NBA and I was looking at last year, I was like, he was like second team All NBA, which is crazy because I think they did the awards before the bubble. Like they just accounted for just everything before the bubble, because when he was in the bubble, it was like a pure disaster, like just a flat out disaster. And that's not even a disrespect. That's like, I think everyone was probably thinking.
He knows that.
Yeah. And
he admitted he couldn't find a hoop for whatever reason.
Facts. And like, just like you said, beginning of the season, still trying to find his way. And now kind of a late bloomer right now towards the end of the season. Hopefully that sort of takes into next season as well. And then I just want to end with like the Miami Heat. Big win over the Celtics over the weekend. And finally just they got Hero back. Dragic is starting to kind of come back. Jimmy Butler is officially back. And like I said, I don't know when I said this, but I was just like, if they get in the play-in tournament or like the first game of whatever playoff series that they're in, is that going to be just like the flip of the switch for them? But just like what I saw on Sunday, I'm just like, that was bubble heat. And can they carry that into the playoffs? But that can be scary for them. The whole entire season we were talking about, like, was last year a fluke? Was it a fluke? Were they just winners of like winning the bubble environment? Just having the best system, best culture, best coach, best essentially player in Jimmy Butler, of getting them to, well, specifically for the Eastern Conference, to get to the finals. But like this year has just been a complete, very inconsistent for them. Injuries, COVID, Jimmy Butler being out and all that stuff. But like if they can kind of take of what they did on Sunday and take that into the playoffs, then I mean, they play right now, it would be the Bucks Heat. The same thing that happened last year that eliminated the Bucks, 4-1, I'm sure the Bucks will very much invite that invitation to play them for a rematch, and the Heat will not be scared because they beat them last year. I know Drew Holiday's there now, but like it could be very scary times, if Miami Heat's really good. I don't trust the Celtics. I just don't trust the Celtics.
Yeah, I'm thinking of early exit for the Celtics.
Right now it's Celtics Hornets, and should I go with the Hornets? Sort of deal.
I'll take the Hornets with Hayward back.
True.
If Hayward can come back, I know LaMelo's back. Seems like he's getting comfortable again. Dropped like 22 points last night.
Anything, as we close, just like anything this last week that you just want to see right now? Or just like one answered or whatever?
Well, I don't want to see any more injuries, and that could happen, and it sucks that it could happen and take a team that had potentials to big aspirations, be cut short. I just want to, I want to see. I'm excited for the play-in tournament, really.
Which is literally almost a week from now, And again, the intrigue of the play-in tournament has just made this last couple weeks just so good. And I don't know if you saw that Shams tweet that like Sunday, the last day of the season, it's like every single team is playing and all in the same window. So it's going to be very chaotic. And I think it literally might come down to that last
Sunday.
Day. Yeah, that Sunday.
I'm excited because, I'm off on Sunday, so I plan to have my popcorn ready for that. And also, real quick, super off topic, J. Cole signing. He's going to play pro basketball.
That's
pretty cool. Getting ready to drop the album. I'm a J. Cole fan. I've been following him like the past year, just seeing his basketball progression. Going to the one gym that they'll Melo and all them boys go. I kind of want to go there because drop buckets,
Facts.
So, super excited for him. Wish him well. He's a super positive person. So
I think it's really cool that they have I think it's the Basketball African League or whatever, and they're trying to build like academies. And you started to see, I guess we'll bring into the whole international guys thing. Tie that in. It's just like you're seeing so many guys, especially of Nigerian descent as well, of just like coming into the league, probably from these academies or even going through the European system as well, of just like coming to the league and just being so gifted, or you see the potential of what they can do. And if they can just start even growing even more with these sort of leagues, sort of deal. And obviously bringing in like a J. Cole or something, even to bring more awareness to it as well, can be very, very interesting. Next week is going to be pretty crazy. You got obviously the play-in tournament coming up. You got the end of the regular season. WNBA season starting this weekend. The Hall of Fame is this weekend as well. Kobe, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett. We'll probably talk about that next week. So look forward to that. As we close, as always, parting shot. This is what I'm going to say, is that this month is actually mental wellness month. And so I guess it's just a reminder just to check up on people. You don't really know what they're going through. A lot of things can be triggering. A lot of people can be depressed about different things, especially with the pandemic kind of going on. Just kind of like check up on people, check up on your friends, check up on your family members. Like I said, anything they could be going through, any sort of different things. It couldn't be something that's physical, or it could be something that's mental or emotional. Just kind of check up on that. And that's kind of like my 2 cents for that. Let's close. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram, Podcast ABC. Tell your friends. If you're playing pickup and you like our podcast, tell other people that like basketball and like the NBA. The NBA has been very great this season. We've been talking about it 8 episodes in, and we're just going to keep going. We're having fun doing this. So follow us. Again, Podcast ABC, and tell your friends and family. Chili, anything that you want to share.
I love you guys. Be safe.
And with that, we will see you next week. This is All Blocks Covered, guys. Peace.